we are at WSDS 2026 hosted by Terry, and I have with me right now Mr. Mahendra Singhi, former CEO and MD at Dalmia Cement and a distinguished fellow at TERI. Sir, you are known for your distinguished work at Dalmia Cement of decarbonizing an industry that uses coal and carbon in a very high quantity. Where do you see industry standing today?
You know, Indian cement industry is very progressive, and we're quite aware of that what can be done by them to decarbonize the sector. As we all know that global cement sector produces almost 7% of the emissions. But Dalmia Cement being a forward-looking company, a sustainable company, they took challenges, and then they said that we would be bringing down our CO2 emissions and would also be net carbon negative company by 2040. For that purpose, the company took a lot of actions, including how to bring down emissions by using more waste of other companies, other sectors like fly ash of power plants, slag of steel plant, and similarly, how to bring down energy consumption, how to bring down heat consumption, so that we worked with the concept of use less, produce more. And ultimately now we have embarked on how we can use municipal waste or hazardous waste so as to avoid fossil fuel. And lastly, the big work which has been done by our company and by many cement companies is that how to use more and more renewable energy. So presently we are at the level of 40%, and we are expecting that by 2030 we will be at 100% renewable energy consumption company only. So I would say that in last many years, last few years, there is a great transformation. There is a structural change from yesterday to today, and the best part now is we are looking forward that by next 5 years, where we can reach to the lowest level also in CO2 emissions. And one of the major challenge which has to be converted into an opportunity is how to use the new technology, which is capture the CO2 and get the carbon and then convert into a sustainable material. So this is one challenge which we are now taking on.
Sir, carbon capture is the buzzword for high emission industry, cement included. So where do you see carbon capture, utilization and storage with respect to the cement industry in India, which is huge, going from here, and how far has it gone in the last 10 years?
I would say in last 5 to 7 years there has been talks, there has been certain lab scale trials all over the world, and in last 3 years certain technologies which have happened developed in India to some extent, but in Europe to a larger extent, by which there has been about 30 pilot plants promoted by various European governments. Now the good part is that when Indian corporates also, Niti Aayog also studied in a big way and then proposed to the government that this is the one way out by which corporates can play the role, government can play the role, science can play the role. So accordingly, the best part is that in this budget, government has come out that they will be earmarking 20,000 crores for 5 years to develop certain pilot projects, certain large-scale projects also, by which we can replicate those such projects in time to come. And I think for cement, for power, for steel, and chemical and oil, this is the answer to become a net zero carbon company. And CCUS will, and particularly in India, carbon capture and utilization will play a very important role.
Over time, carbon capture, utilization and storage, that is CCUS technologies, have demonstrated their capacity to adequately reduce steel making emissions. This is true even for the cement industry. Carbon capture, utilization and storage is a crucial climate technology suite that captures CO2 emissions from industrial sources, that is power plants and refineries, or the atmosphere, either storing it underground permanently or utilizing it for products like chemicals, plastics, and concrete. It is essential for decarbonizing hard-to-abate sectors.
I think primarily we're in the early innings of carbon capture, in as much as a lot of new technologies have been coming out and they're being tested in the marketplace. And it's a lot of innovation and a lot of competition, which is what we want. That's what we need in order to get these tested and have the ones that are able to provide the best value to the customer win out in the marketplace. Where we are right now is determining what that looks like. And I think a lot of that has to do with where we're putting that carbon once we capture it. So whether we're putting it in a pipeline, whether we're using it for a commodity, whether we're putting it into the ground. So that really determines a big piece of what the carbon capture mechanism itself. Stacks Engineering, what we do, and in California has an at-berth regulation, and what that at-berth regulation was designed to do was capture emissions at port. So when a vessel comes in port, a container, an auto carrier, a tanker, it keeps its auxiliary engines running. And when it does that, it emits somewhere around 40 to 50,000 cars worth of emissions a day. And California, after solving its auto emission in the 70s and 80s and 90s, looked toward the ports to solve those particular problems on the emissions. And so that's targeted PM 2.5 and NOx. And what we say at Stacks is those are the things that kill people today. And unfortunately, it's disproportionately in the neighborhoods around the ports. As that fallout comes in, it's increase in cancer rates, increase in emphysema and asthma and heart disease. And so by eliminating that, and it's basically what we do is we put a large bonnet over a stack, and we take all those emissions and it processes through our processing unit, where we take out the PM and we take out the NOx, and all we release at that point is CO2. Now in California particularly, CO2 is not a regulated gas, and so we're allowed to release it. However, what we've done at Stacks is we have actually partnered with several carbon capture companies and put that technology onto our barge as well. And ultimately what happens is we're able to capture the CO2 in addition to the PM and the NOx. And what that means ultimately is any vessel that comes into a port, we can now make a zero emission vessel, which is a pretty powerful statement.
What are the challenges? High costs and the need for long-term storage stability.
Currently, the way this system works is we charge on an hourly basis. And so the advantage that is to the ports and to the customers is they don't have to pay for the CapEx up front. They have a system that shows up when they show up, we attach, and then it's an hourly rate. For the auto carriers themselves, their customers are the Mercedes, the Toyotas, the Hyundais of the world, and that fits right into their ESG plan. They are looking for ways to decarbonize and reduce their emissions within their supply chain. So they're ecstatic about that. But if you look at who pays for it, right now, if those emissions are unfiltered and dropped in the community, it's billions of dollars for the state to cover the healthcare effects of those. So they're paying right now is the state. The way it works in our model is that we charge the vessel carriers themselves. It ends up being 100 to 200 rupees a container, maybe 500 rupees a car. So it's really not a significant amount of pass-through compared to the savings that you're getting when you talk about the overall effect from the health perspective.
Now, what are the key aspects of CCUS? 1. Capture methods. This includes post-combustion, that is separating CO2 from fuel gas. And pre-combustion. Pre-combustion removes CO2 from fossil fuels before combustion by converting fuel, that is coal, natural gas and biomass, into a high-pressure synthesis gas of hydrogen and carbon dioxide. 2. Storage. Storage in carbon capture involves injecting captured CO2, often in supercritical fluid state, into deep underground geological formations for permanent sequestration. 3. Utilization. This involves capturing CO2 from industrial sources or the air and converting it into valuable products like synthetic fuels, chemicals, for example, urea, methanol, and building materials.
We're fitted in the vessels that's delivering. So the big auto carriers basically are floating parking lots, right? And they're filled with thousands of BMWs. As they come into port and they are waiting to offload all the cars, they ultimately are running their engines continuously, equivalent to 40 to 50,000 cars worth of emissions a day. What we do is we stop that emission there from going in the local community, from going to the local school ground or the playground, and the transfer cost of that is de minimis. It's, as I mentioned, maybe 300 to 500 rupees a car that's passed either through to the consumer or borne by BMW themselves.
CCUS supports reducing emissions from industrial processes, that is steel and cement, and allows for negative emissions via technologies like direct air capture and bioenergy with CCS. While CCUS is essential for high emission industries like mining, cement and steel, just to name a few, the cost stresses margins. And here, the divide between the global north and the global south becomes prominent.
We're still trying to figure out what the pricing looks like for these solutions. And you look at somewhere like the UK that's got a networked pipelines that are former oil and gas pipelines that go out to the North Sea. Well, that's a great delivery system of that carbon when it's captured. So yes, it gets to go out, it's a nice delivery system. I know in California, we don't have a delivery system. So if we capture it, what do we do with it? Do we have to transport to landfill? How do we move it? It becomes expensive. So I would say, I don't know if there's a delta between north and south yet, because I don't think we really know what that cost is for capture. I don't think industry has figured out what the most optimal solution is. I think we're working toward that. And I think there's still a lot of investment going into carbon capture. Despite it's happening in the US and standards moving, you're still seeing a tremendous amount of investment into carbon capture. And I think that's positive. I think what we really need, ultimately, people will bet on technology. Investors will invest in technology, new technology, risky technology. Investors don't like to invest in risky markets. They want to know what the market is. You could have okay technology with a great market and people will invest in you. If you have great technology in a bad market, you're out of luck. And so I think the more we can get those carbon prices firm that investors can point to and they can build financial models around, the more likely we're going to see adoption of these technologies.
Extended Producer Responsibility, that's what EPR is. It is an environmental policy approach holding producers responsible for the entire life cycle of their products, including post-consumer disposal, recycling, and take-back. It shifts waste management burdens from municipalities to manufacturers, encouraging sustainable, eco-friendly product design.
EPR system, we are so it is basically the new system that is being employed, and we believe that our responsibility is not within the boundaries where we operate, but it is also beyond our boundaries, and that is where the EPR plays an important role. So, and that is one. Second, it is about also the scrap part of it. As we move forward, scrap is going to be one of the biggest enabler if we have to start accelerating our decarbonization journey. In that way, our extended partners, our extended customers, like the machinery division, like the automobiles, like the real estate guys, they are the one who can really support in terms of bringing that scrap or end of life or the spot scrap back into our premises, and we can use that scrap to basically enhance our or accelerate our decarbonization journey. So this actually right now the entire market is quite fragmented, and that is where as we move forward, we can organize the entire scrap part of it, because if you talk about India per se, we use only 25% of the scrap in our industry versus 45 to 65% scrap use in Europe or in US or in Turkey. So that's in that regard, our plans as we move forward, as a company, we believe that the scrap system, when we talk about the collection, sorting and fragmentation, basically that is where we are going to work on that very well. And the way Tatas have come up with a 1 million ton scrap plant, we'll also try to do the same thing in terms of accelerate the scrap addition into in order to reduce our carbon intensity. And if we have to take this journey from the grey steel or black steel to the low carbon emission green steel, this is going to be the biggest enabler. So we need to increase our percentage of scrap addition from existing 5% to close to 15%. That is the overall target.
EPR in most part compels companies to account for the environmental impact of their products, often requiring them to fund recycling infrastructure and take-back programs. Now, what are the key aspects of EPR? 1. Targeted waste primarily focuses on plastic waste, e-waste, batteries, and used tires. The objectives are reduced environmental degradation, promotes a circular economy, and lowers landfill dependency. 2. Compliance involves registration with authorities. For example, Central Pollution Control Board in India to manage and report waste.
There will be a compliance, the way the CCTS is going to come. I think this plus CBAM, we believe that they are very good precursors to really accelerate this overall compliance part of it, and EPR will play an important role. So when we talk about the CCTS, it has been already rolled out for chloroalkali plants, for chemicals, aluminium, and for steel, it is going to be rolled out soon. So the message is very clear that they are going to reward the good behavior and they are going to basically punish the bad behavior. So the one who are accelerating their decarbonization journey, they will earn credit, and the guys who are not able to sort of meet their targets, the 3%, 4% target reduction in the carbon intensity, they have to buy the credit. So in that way, this compliance is super important if we have to really accelerate this. That is one. Second, when we talk about the export of the steel going forward, CBAM will play an important role. So when you talk about that part of it, then I think this will also be a compliance part where if we have to export the steel in Europe, we have to basically comply to their product carbon footprint, and if we can sort of if we don't meet that, we have to pay the extra penalty, and that will be actually will go from our margins, not going from the customers. So if we have to protect our margins going forward, or if we have to increase our margins, we have to basically start decelerating, and we as a company have already started this journey in terms of accelerating our decarbonization. We have taken a target to reduce our fossil use 50% by 2030 in order to go from the fossil to the non-fossil renewable energy. That is one. Second, as we move forward, the target will be how we can sort of deploy the solar energy, and as we speak, we are going to commission 1.5 gigawatt of solar energy park that is coming up in Bikaner, Rajasthan by middle of this month, and by middle of this year, and next year we will be adding another 1.5 gigawatt wind power plant that is coming up in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. So these are the low-hanging fruits. Apart from this, there is so much of focus on resource efficiency to use. The second is the deployment of AI and IoT of the things. So that is where we are focusing right now, because we believe energy efficiency or renewable energy, resource efficiency, circularity, these are converting the waste that is coming out from our plant like slag, using that slag to make roads or soil conditioner. These are some of the quick levers that we have before we start taking the big leaps in forms of carbon capture, utilization and storage, and green hydrogen.
EPR involves the installation of equipment and investment in technology for a company. For industries such as steel and cement, which are already stressed when it comes to margins and market share globally, it could be a tough choice to make. What are the benefits of this? Encourages the use of recycled materials, improves waste collection, and helps meet consumers' demand for sustainable practices.
On the carbon capture side, I'm pleased to inform you that we are the only company in the world which is already capturing 4,000 tons of CO2 per day. right? So we are the only company. Now our journey is not on the carbon capturing. Carbon capturing for us, it is actually a mature technology. We don't have to do any heavy lifting here. But where the focus right now or going forward will be to utilize this carbon captured into the important molecules like methanol, ethanol. That is where we are working closely with IIT Bombay and Ministry of Steel, where we have taken up a project to convert the carbon captured CO2 into CO, the carbon monoxide molecule that can be again recycled back into our DRI furnace. So this is the classic way of circularity as well, and we can also valorize our captured CO2. That is one. Second, we are also we have come up with a very novel expression of interest, global expression of interest, where we are asking the companies to come and co-locate their plant within our plant. So how this model will help? This will help in this way, that we can give them over the fence captured CO2, and they will focus on the renewable energy and to make green hydrogen, to make methanol. So that way it is just like a cluster, the valleys that we are talking about, and this we believe is the novel way. So this is the second part. The third part is that once we are exhausted with the utilization option, the focus will shift towards the storage, and that is where we have already started our work with IIT Bombay and one of the startup to identify the permanent sinks within 50 kilometers, 100 kilometers and 150 kilometer radius of our plant. So once these permanent sinks will be identified, then we'll do a real geological study, drill the holes, try to see the reservoir engineering, what is the water table, what is the capacity of these sinks, and then once that is done, then we can directly try to build the hub and cluster model, where the sources are identified, that is the captured CO2 from our plant, and once we have the sinks in front of us, then the matchmaking can happen. And then apart from us, the other industries within the vicinity of our plant can also join us, and we can maybe form that infrastructure for to form this cluster. So that is where the focus is right now. So more on utilization, and then after our utilization options are exhausted, then we will also focus on the storage as well.
The big question is, how are corporates managing margins while investing in carbon capture and EPR technologies to meet their sustainability and ESG goals?
All the incremental, as I said, all this is incremental initiative. You talk about CCUS, you talk about green hydrogen, there will be an incremental, cost close to $150 to $200 per ton, depending upon the technology that we use, right? So now, on the supply side, there is no paucity of technology. Technologies are coming up, and not only Jindal Steel, all the entire sector is basically using or try to adopt these technologies, starting from pilot to semi-commercial and then to commercial one. We as a company, we focus that yes, if there is a clear basically mandates, because this is super important. The mandates is important. The carbon prices in the market, that is important, and that will come through CCTS and CBAM. The mandates will come from the public, the Green Steel Public Procurement Policy, and then once that is done, then there will be a willingness to pay premium. Once these three things are there, then there is a proper demand that will be created. Supply side, we are working in terms of resource efficiency, as I said, in terms of renewable energy, in terms of the energy efficiency. Once we do all this in converting waste into wealth, now these are the incremental capex. We will invest close to 10 to 15% in these initiatives, and the reduction, the impact on our carbon intensity will be whopping 25 to 30%, right? So once that is done, then we'll shift our gears to CCUS and the green hydrogen. There will be an incremental basically cost of production that will happen, but with this CCTS, carbon prices, willingness to pay premium, and the demand, the mandates by the Green Steel policy, I think all that thing will be taken care of, and we believe that the coming time is going to be a very good time. Once this demand, all these precursors are there, there will be a good business, incremental business, more incremental customers, more incremental geographies, and the overall, basically the reduction in the carbon intensity can really drive our future of the company.